So, how to create a simple visual brand guide. Make sure that you connect with us. I'm Laura Dunkley, the CMO and principal consultant here at Acorn. Emily is our creative director, and unfortunately, she can't be here, but she is the one that oversees our brand and most of our clients' brands. And then she presented some slides and best practices for today. Please do reach out if you have any questions for her. And then she will be joining us for future sessions. And don't forget to join our Facebook group. That's where we get to continue the conversation beyond today. So before we get started, there are a few things just to remind you that you need to know before you head into doing visuals. One is we have to know our business. We talk about this all the time, have your business plan and have your brand strategy in place and things like that. But there's some simple things that we would want to know about, right? And it seems very obvious, but you do need to have a business name. Don't go starting creating a logo until you've established that name. Know where you want to go and who you are, your vision, values, and mission. Definitely know your goals, because where you want to take your brand is really important when we start to create visual identifiers. And know the value your business brings to others, especially your target audience. So knowing your target audience is key. And what makes your brand stand out from the competition? What is the differentiator? And that's going to help you as you start to establish that visual identity. As we mentioned, know your audience. Primary and secondary audience persona. Typically, we spend a lot of time on the primary, but there is usually secondary audiences. We do have sessions coming up on target audience too. So the more you know the audience, the more it'll help you in this piece, the visual representation, but it's through your entire marketing strategy. Knowing your audience is key. What problems do you solve, and how do you expect to connect with your audience? And finally, know your competition, right? Direct competition and indirect competition. How are they doing? How are they performing? And consider that SWOT, that strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We have that in our one-page business plan. You should have it in your bigger business plan, but really do know where you are positioned for your business and how you are positioned in marketing. So do a SWOT analysis. And congrats. Now you understand your business. It's time to build your brand. Here's some things to have on hand or consider as you start to work with your designer, or if you're doing it yourself. What does that include? What is a visual brand guide? We have things called logo variations, color palette and combinations, font collection. Ooh, if you're not used to this, they all might sound like foreign words. We're going to show you what all of these mean coming up. But these are the things that'll be packaged into your brand guide. Those are the essentials. We also have extras like icon and patterns, mock-ups, brand collateral, logos and font rules and restrictions, as well as color contrast chart. Those are extras, really nice to have, but you definitely need those essentials. So let's have a look on what they look like. Brand number one. Here's one that Emily created. A logo variations and what it shows the different style, right? Like typically, and it depends what you pay for, but different logos, you're for sure going to have a primary, and this one is showing a stacked version. Secondary, more of a landscape, and so typically you're going to use your primary more, as obvious in the term, but secondary is there, and a lot of it depends on where you're going to use it. Like sometimes that landscape works better. Maybe it's going to sit in the background. A word mark is really just the word. That's where it takes out all of the different extras, right? Like the different icons or the graphics, and it's just the word. And sometimes there's an application just for that. And a submark would be similar to what this is going to be. Perhaps, and there's different usages for this, but if it needs a little tight spot, the DL for him is the submark, and the favicon, if you don't know what a favicon is, that is the little tiny image that is up in your browser window. So when you have a whole bunch of browser windows open and you see the name of the website and a little tiny image beside it, that's where that goes. And there's a place on your website where you can put that. And it's a quick identifier, doesn't take long, and it's a perfect place to put it. Now, doesn't mean you can't use a favicon somewhere else. It's a really nice little tight button, and in this case, and it can be used other places as well. But that is what the favicon is. You definitely want at least the primary, secondary, and the favicon. The submark and the word mark are always nice to have as well. Okay, let's jump into another one. Very different. That was for a consultant. This one is for a business that's actually in the Niagara region in Ontario. And Emily created this for this business that is a restaurant, pub, as well as they do golf simulators and things like that. So this was the branding that they chose, the primary. And just a little bit of a background, they had a specific requests on what wanted to be in that, what they wanted in it. And Emily took that and created this image for them. So we've got a primary, we have a secondary, we have a word mark where it still has a little bit of graphics, but it really pulls out that word. Great for using it on menus. The submark, they use these little icons. That was part of what they wanted, and they used different icons for different things. And she pulled that out and gave them all those icons, and then the favicon options that she provided for them as well. So that is a very different application. We Care is a company in Ontario as well. And she provided them with these different variations. So the primary, it's bigger, it's bolder, definitely more of a stacked style. Secondary, more landscape. Word mark, these are really good too, and it depends on some of your corporate materials, right? Like again, it's the usage on when you would use that, and you could talk to your designer about recommendations for that. We Care, pediatric home health care. So that's their word mark, and their submark, which is kind of like an icon, right? Like how you would use that, is there. And then she shows the favicon, the white and the dark. So it's really nice now. People are in dark mode and light mode. Now we have options for that she's provided. And that segues into light and dark mode, because that's something else you're going to want, is making sure that you do have the black. What is it going to look like on a black version? What is it going to look like on the white version? And you'll want to make sure you have both those options when you get into your logos. Color palettes. So now we have the images, we have all of those colors. As part of your visual brand guide, you need to have your color palettes. I cannot tell you how important that is as a marketing person that uses visual brand guides. When I go to create content, even if it's just the front of an ebook, or when I start to put things into email marketing, it's like I need to know what the graphic designer, what that brand needs to be, and the colors are really important. So having that color palette and always being consistent across all of your marketing materials is important. One thing to remember, this is not a combination of your favorite colors. This is for your brand. Ensure your palette has a mix of contrast. Best practice is to have 4 to 5 colors, and then to pair your colors with contrast in mind always, right? Don't, and it's a challenge some of us make, especially when it comes to accessibility and color blindness and things. You want to make sure that they aren't too similar, that when somebody sees it quickly, it's not hard to read. And that's where the contrast comes in. So in your visual brand guide, they will show you what's the primary color. They're going to show you all the hex numbers and the RGB. Do I get the RGB numbers and the CMYK? Our designer will speak to that later if you have questions on what that is. Some is for print, some is for digital, and just to make sure that you are using the right combination at the right time. And then we jump into fonts. As you've seen this, right? You've got American Typer. These are just examples of what you will probably see in your guide. So let's talk about fonts. The importance of picking your oh, that is meant to be your font collection, is ensure the fonts you choose are easy to read across various mediums and devices. If using a decorative font, signature, cursive, graffiti, try to use it sparingly. Please remember that, especially when you're using social media. It's so easy to find these templates and go, oh, this is really cool. It's like, well, I can't read it. And you have such a microsecond to get it. Like, remember, readability, usability has to be priority over the artistic side of it all. So please do use those decorative fonts carefully. Make sure it aligns with your brand and works for your audience. Ensure that you have the right to use the fonts commercially and they are compatible with all the platforms you plan to use them on. Choose fonts that are versatile and work well in different contexts, from your website to your business cards. If you're doing large form content, make sure it is being used appropriately. This is where your designer will tell you what should be a header, what should be part of the paragraph, when to use it. That's part of the guide and instruction on how to use your fonts. If you plan on creating content that is multilingual, ensure it is compatible with the different language characters. And then pairing your fonts, choose fonts that are versatile and work well in different contexts, from your website to your business cards. We did mention that. If you plan on creating content that's multilingual, this is ensure it's compatible with different language characters. So that comes to the point where, as we mentioned, when you're picking your fonts, but also when you're putting them together, that you consider that. So now let's put it together. What does this visual brand guide look like? And we want to make sure it's simple. Like, we have worked on huge guides, like pages and pages and pages of them. But for you guys, you just need a simple one, something that you can reference so that as you do it, you just have that quick piece. And you can do it in Canva. You can, if your designer gives it to you, maybe it's just a PDF that you keep readily available. Whatever that is, keep it simple, but have everything you need. So putting Dakota's in together, we have his primary up the top. We have all of his logos. We have what it looks like on light and dark. We have all the colors. The easy hex, that little hex code, that's usually what you copy and paste, right? If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation or you're in Canva, that's the hex code that you will copy in, and then it will pull up the proper color. It's showing what colors work well with others, and then it shows those main fonts. So the American Typewriter is what he has for his headers, and Montserrat Regular is the second one. Some of the extras that we talked about having, you might want to have, is in your guide, it may say logo misuse, like to make sure that you don't extort it. You don't do this color on this color. Don't have it where it's washed out or in an angle. So those are what you would see in a guide quite often. You could see those brand icons. For We Care, we have all of these cute little icons that are used throughout all their marketing. It's kind of fun. Color contrast chart. This is something quite recent Emily has put together, because sometimes I forget, and even a slight little bit won't allow for accessibility. So she has put, if you have to put this color on it, do this version instead, and you might have that. That is definitely not something that is typical. But if you want to be very close and very strong with your brand, or you have multiple people working with your team, you want to have something that's actually that detailed. Brand patterns are seriously fun. If it makes sense for you guys, we did do one with We Care, and it's cute. We have the pink in the back. Emily created this for them that they use all over, especially if you're thinking about merchandise. It's kind of fun, or wall graphics, different things like that. It can be fun to have something like that. Clear space is, I would say, it's probably not even an extra. You should probably have that, or at least keep it in mind when you are doing your branding, is to make sure that there is blank space around. You don't have a second logo sitting right on that brand, on that logo, or you don't have a picture right up. Give it some breathing room. And it's just a reminder to make sure to do that. And then finally, social media templates. You probably are creating them. I know we do for a lot of our clients. And what that does is just to make sure we've taken all of it and we've given you an example of what to use in social media, which is an example of what to use in all your marketing. Create all of that, have it up on Canva if that's what you're using, and that way you can pull from it and you're making sure that you've thought through it through a strategy as part of your social media strategy, and it's just easier to pull from it. So that is your quick and easy, simple visual brand guide to get you started.